penthouse windows like 1,000 accusing fists, blurring the glittering skyline of New York into a watery grave. Alexander Hale, the untouchable CEO of Hale Tech, stood in the marble-floored living room, his tailored suit soaked from the storm he'd stormed in from. His dark eyes, usually sharp as a blade, were fractured with something raw, fear, maybe, or the ghost of regret he couldn't yet name. Across from him, Elena Vargas clutched the edge of the velvet sofa, her belly swollen with the promise of life they'd created together. Her dark curls clung to her tear-streaked face, and her voice, when it came, was a whisper that cut deeper than any boardroom negotiation. "You can't mean this, Alex. 24 hours. That's all I'm worth to you now." He turned away, jaw clenched, staring at the city that had devoured his soul. "The board's breathing down my neck. This merger, it's everything. If they find out about us, about the baby, it'll tank. I built this empire from nothing, Elena. I can't lose it." She laughed, a broken sound that echoed off the glass walls. "And what about us? What about the life we're building? Or was that just another acquisition you could discard when the stock dipped?" The clock on the mantel ticked like a bomb. 24 hours. That's all he gave her, the woman who'd thawed his frozen heart, who'd made him believe in something beyond balance sheets and buyouts. As she gathered her things that night, stuffing dreams into a duffel bag, Alexander felt the first crack in his armor. But pride sealed it shut. By dawn, she was gone, vanishing into the storm like a secret he never deserved to keep. 5 years earlier, their story had begun not in boardrooms or ballrooms, but in the unlikeliest of places, a cramped coffee shop in Brooklyn, where the air smelled of burnt espresso and fresh rain. Alexander, then a rising star at 28, had been nursing a black coffee after a brutal all-nighter, his laptop screen glowing with projections that promised to catapult Hale Tech into the stratosphere. Elena, 25 and fiercely independent, worked the counter, her laugh a melody that cut through the hum of grinders and chatter. She had eyes like polished obsidian, full of fire and quiet storms, and hands that moved with the grace of someone who'd learned to mend her own wounds. He'd spilled his coffee that first day, fumbling his phone as he reached for a napkin. She slid one over with a smirk. "Rough night conquering the world." He glanced up, caught off guard by her unfiltered warmth. "Something like that. You, conquering the lunch rush. Same difference." Her name tag read, Elena, and by the end of his refill, he'd learned she was an artist by night, sketches of cityscapes that captured the soul of streets most people rushed past. She'd grown up in a tiny apartment in Queens, daughter of immigrant parents who'd poured everything into her dreams. Art school had been her ticket out, but life had other plans. Scholarships dried up, and she slung lattes to pay the rent. Alexander found himself returning, day after day, not for the coffee but for her. She challenged him, teased his workaholic ways, sketched caricatures of him as a suited king on a throne of circuit boards. He opened up in ways he never had, about the foster homes that had shaped his ruthless drive, the father who'd abandoned him at 8, leaving scars that ambition alone couldn't heal. "I won't be left behind again," he'd confessed one rainy afternoon, their knees brushing under the tiny table. Elena saw through the armor. "Power's a lonely throne, Alex. What good is an empire if there's no one to share the view?" Their first date was impulsive, a midnight walk along the East River, where she dragged him into a street fair pulsing with salsa, music and food truck aromas. He, who dined at Michelin stars, devoured her homemade empanadas from a Tupperware she'd snuck in her bag. They danced under string lights, her laughter pulling him into spins he hadn't attempted since childhood. That night, in her walk-up apartment overlooking a fire-escaped jungle, they kissed for the first time. It wasn't fireworks, it was a hearth igniting, warm and inevitable. Love bloomed fast and fierce. Alexander whisked her to galas and limos, where she charmed moguls with her unpretentious wit. She grounded him, leaving sketches on his desk, visions of a future with lazy Sundays and family barbecues. He proposed on a private jet to Paris, 6 months in, with a ring that sparkled like his promises. "We'll build something real, Elena. Not just code and contracts, a life." But the merger loomed like a shadow. Hale Tech's acquisition of a rival AI firm was his magnum opus, a deal that would make him untouchable. Whispers in the boardroom turned to roars when Elena's pregnancy test came back positive. Joy exploded in their penthouse that evening, Alexander spinning her in circles, vowing to be the father his own never was. "Our kid's going to have the world," he said, hand on her belly. The board caught wind through a careless email. "Personal distractions undermine focus," the chairman growled in a closed-door meeting. "Divorce the drama, Hale, or the deal dies." Alexander's world tilted. Late nights bled into dawns. Elena's calls went unanswered. She understood at first, rubbed his shoulders as he pored over documents, whispering encouragements. But doubt crept in like fog off the Hudson. The night of the ultimatum arrived after a gala where Alexander schmoozed investors, Elena sidelined in a gown that hid her growing bump. She overheard a director's slurred warning, "Get rid of the girl, or you're out." Back home, the argument erupted. Words flew like shrapnel, his ambition a grenade, her hurt the trigger. 24 hours, Elena. Pack your things. I'll wire you enough to start over, anywhere but here. She stared, the woman who'd once seen his soul now seeing only the shell. Start over? With your child? Without you? Her voice cracked. I thought we were partners, Alex. Equals. You're a liability now. The words tasted like ash, but he spat them anyway. Pride, fear, it didn't matter. He watched her go, the door clicking shut like a vault. Elena's world shattered on that cab ride to Queens. Rain lashed the windows, mirroring the storm inside. Her parents, aging and frail, welcomed her with open arms, their tiny home a sanctuary of a rose con pollo and rosaries. But grief was a thief, stealing sleep and appetite. The twins came 2 months early, Luca and Sophia, tiny miracles with Alexander's stormy eyes and her defiant curls. Holding them in the NICU, tubes snaking like fragile lifelines, Elena vowed, "We'll be enough. Just us." The challenges piled on like winter snow. Single motherhood in a city that chewed up dreams was a battlefield. Diapers and daycare ate her savings, the wired money from Alexander, a cold million, sat untouched, a tainted lifeline she refused. "I won't let him buy our silence," she told her mother, who nodded through tears, her arthritic hands kneading dough for arepas. Elena clawed her way forward. By day, she waitressed at a trendier spot, charming tips from hipsters who adored her bilingual banter. Nights, she painted, fierce canvases of fractured skylines and resilient figures, selling them at local markets. A gallery owner spotted her work at a street fair. "There's pain here, but power too." Raw. Her first exhibit sold out, whispers turning to buzz. Commissions followed, murals for community centers, portraits for families rebuilding after loss. But the twins were her anchor. And her ache. Luca, the bolder one, inherited Alexander's intensity, scaling furniture like corporate ladders, his laughter a roar that filled empty rooms. Sophia, quieter, sketched with crayons, her tiny brow furrowing in concentration, echoing Elena's own. Bedtime stories wove tales of absent kings who learned too late the treasure of their kingdom. "Papa's out there," Elena would say, throat tight, "but we're our own royalty." Holidays were hardest. Christmases in Queens, with tinsel strung on a ficus and gifts wrapped in newspaper, were joyous chaos, Luca's drum solos on pots, Sophia's finger-painted cards. Yet Elena's heart hollowed at carols about absent fathers. She dated sporadically, a kind teacher who adored the kids, but his steady rhythm couldn't match the wild symphony Alexander had awakened. "You're still holding space for him," the teacher said gently, and she knew it was true. Forgiveness was a seed she planted nightly, but resentment's weeds choked it. Meanwhile, across the river, Alexander's empire expanded, but his life contracted. The merger sealed with champagne toasts. Halitech's stock soared, crowning him billionaire at 33. Mansions multiplied, Hamptons retreats, Aspen chalets, but they echoed with silence. He filled them with echoes. Late-night scotch, women who mirrored Elena's beauty but lacked her fire, business deals that blurred into one endless negotiation. Regret first whispered at Luca and Sophia's would-be first birthday. A calendar alert pinged, ultrasound appointment, a relic from synced phones he'd never deleted. He stared at the empty penthouse, the room he'd baby-proofed now a sterile office. That night, dreams haunted him, Elena's laugh fading into cries he couldn't reach. Years blurred. At 35, Alexander was a ghost in his own legend, Forbes covers lauding his genius, tabloids speculating on his eternal bachelorhood. But mirrors lied, the man staring back had hollow cheeks, eyes shadowed by what-ifs. He hired private investigators, casual at first, just curious, then desperate. Dead ends. False leads to a waitress in Chicago, an artist in LA. She vanished clean, sir. No digital footprint. The break came at a charity auction in Soho, 3 years into his fruitless hunt. Flipping the catalog, his heart seized. Urban Requiem, by Elena Vargas, a canvas of a stormy city parting like Red Sea waves, revealing a family silhouette bathed in dawn. The bio. Mother, artist, survivor. Proceeds to single-parent scholarships. He bid furiously, winning for $250,000, far above estimate. The paddle shook in his hand. That night, he drove to the gallery address, heart pounding like a novice pitch. But she wasn't there. An assistant handed him the painting, wrapped in brown paper. Ms. Vargas's private, exhibitions only. Desperation morphed to determination. He scoured art blogs, stalked social media shadows. A blurry photo from a Queen's Fair. Elena, radiant in overalls smudged with paint, flanked by two dark-haired children blowing bubbles. Twins. His breath caught. Luca's mischievous grin, Sophia's thoughtful gaze. Them. The word from the dream he'd buried. He didn't sleep. Dawn found him on his knees in the penthouse, the painting unwrapped against the wall. It wept what he couldn't. The fracture he'd wrought, the beauty he'd forfeited. What have I done? The CEO who commanded billions wept like the boy abandoned in a group home. Finding her took months, bribes to fair organizers, a tail on a delivery van. The pie finally delivered. Vargas family, 142nd Street, Queens. She's thriving, community mural project, kids in Montessori. Alexander's Ferrari idled outside the brownstone on a crisp October afternoon, 5 years to the day of her departure. Leaves swirled like confetti for a homecoming he didn't deserve. Through the window, he saw them, Elena on the stoop, sketching on a pad while Luca chased Sophia in a game of tag, their laughter a symphony he'd missed every note of. He stepped out, legs leaden. Elena looked up, pencil pausing mid-stroke. Recognition dawned slow, then sharp as a blade. She rose, shielding the twins behind her like a lioness. Alex, Elena, his voice cracked, the billionaire reduced to a supplicant. The kids peered out, Luca bold, Sophia shy. God, they were perfect. What are you doing here? Her tone was steel wrapped in silk, eyes tracing the lines age and isolation had etched on him. I saw your painting. It gutted me. He swallowed, glancing at the children. They're mine, aren't they? A beat, heavy as the rain that night. Ours, but you made your choice. Luca tugged her hand. Mama, who's the suit man? She knelt, smoothing his hair. An old friend, mijo. To Alexander, 5 years. You think you can waltz back? No, I know I can't, but I'd give anything, everything, for a minute with them. With you. Tears welled, unbidden. I was a fool, Elena. The Empire, it's ash without you. I chased shadows, thinking they'd fill the void. But you were the light. And I extinguished it. Sophia stepped forward, clutching a crumpled drawing, a family of 4 under a rainbow. Do you like to draw? She asked, voice small but steady. Alexander crouched, world shrinking to her wide eyes. I used to, but not like your mama. Show me. She hesitated, then handed it over. His fingers trembled as he unfolded it. It's beautiful, like you. The dam broke then. Elena's resolve cracked. Not forgiveness, but the raw ache of shared loss. They ask about you sometimes. Where's Papa? I say he's building dreams far away. But dreams without heart are just echoes. They talked on the stoop as dusk fell, twins orbiting like curious moons. He shared his voids, the lonely holidays, the deals that tasted like regret. She bared hers. The colic nights, the pride in their first steps he'd missed, the quiet fear that love like theirs was a once-in-a-lifetime blaze. Challenges lingered, thorns on the rose of reunion. Trust was a shattered vase. Elena's independence, hard-won, bristled at his offers of help. I don't need your money, Alex. We built this without it. And that's what kills me, he admitted. I want to earn it back. Not with checks, with time. The first hurdle, the twins' wariness. Luca tested him with endless questions. Why'd you leave, mister? His small fists clenched like accusations. Alexander answered honestly, no polish. I was scared, buddy. Scared of failing you like I was failed. But I'm here now, if you'll let me try. Sophia was gentler, bonding over crayons. They'd draw for hours, her letting, him following, his lines clumsy but earnest. One evening, as colors smeared the kitchen table, she asked, will you stay for story time? He glanced at Elena, who nodded, eyes glistening. Once upon a time, he began, voice thick, a king lost his way. Weeks turned to months. Alexander scaled back, delegating mergers, trading jets for subway rides to Queens. He moved into a modest apartment nearby, not the penthouse palace. Date nights with Elena were tentative, walks in Prospect Park, where she'd sketch and he'd listen, really listen, to her dreams of a gallery for underrepresented artists. But shadows loomed, the board murmured, hails gone soft, and a rival firm circled like sharks. The climax crashed on a snowy February night, echoes of that rainy ultimatum. A leak, photos of him with the twins splashed across headlines. Billionaire's secret family, merger of hearts or hearts break. The chairman called, venomous, clean it up, or we do. Alexander faced Elena in her sunlit kitchen, Luca and Sophia napping. Upstairs, they're pushing me out, unless I distance myself again. Her face paled, but fire kindled. Then fight, Alex, not for them, for us. Show me the man I fell for isn't buried under the suits. He did. In a blistering press conference, broadcast live, he dismantled the facade. Hale Tech was my fortress, but family is my foundation. I've spent years building walls, now, I'm tearing them down. The board can have their merger. I'll take my life back. Scandal erupted, stock dipped, allies scattered. But supporters rallied, investors who valued hard-led innovation, employees who'd chafed under his old tyranny. Elena stood beside him at the next exhibit, her hand in his, twins waving from the front row. Urban Requiem, sold to a museum, a new series, reclaimed light, captured their mended fractures, colors bleeding into holes. Resolution came softly, like spring thaw. A year after the stoop, under Brooklyn's string lights at that same street fair, Alexander knelt again, not with a ring, but a vow. I can't undo the 24 hours. But I can give you forever. Marry me, Elena. Let me be the partner, the father, the man you deserve. Tears traced her cheeks as she pulled him up. Yes, but promise me, no more ultimatums. Just us. The wedding was intimate. Queen's backyard, her parents beaming, twins scattering petals like stars. Luca, ring bearer with a grin wider than the Hudson, whispered, Papa's home. 5 years after the reign, Alexander Hale was no longer a king, but a man, rich in love's true currency. He'd trade every zero in his accounts for the chaos of bedtime battles, the warmth of Elena's hand in his, the sticky hugs that smeared paint on his once pristine shirts. And in quiet moments, watching his family, them, he knew, empires crumble, but love rebuilds. The greatest wealth isn't in vaults or valuations, it's in the minutes we choose to cherish, before time's storm sweeps them away. Hold tight to yours. They're the only legacy that echoes eternally.